Alright, welcome back to the channel. So back for second round two of let's try and make a motor go. So I do have a new board, and I also have a motor tester here which I thought I'd just give a run to see how it works and what it shows us. So we'll start off with that one first up, and then we'll get into the board part of it after that. So all I'm going to do is just hook up these wires to the motor tester and give it a spin, and it should register on here that the motor is actually turning and that it should be okay. So on the edge of this board box thing, there's hole heap connectors and plugs and stuff, and tells you what to connect to where. So for this one, obviously we are going for the main motor phase wires, so we'll hook it up to those ones, which is these three here. So we're just going to do it in order that they're there. So we've got blue as the main first one, and we'll do that as number one off this, which is the red one. And then number two is the black one, which goes to the green. And then the brown one from over here goes to the yellow one. So I've got our motor hooked up, and we'll just flick this on, and you can see that obviously it's got a very bright power light there. So now if I turn this motor, we should see the lights come on, and you can see them flicking there, which says that the motor itself is okay. So it's picking up a signal from the magnets as they spin past the windings in the motor, so that means the motor's okay, which is a good start. So if you remember from the last video where I said that this is the old board, decided to let out a massive crack when I plugged it back in. I thought that it was not rated for 80 volts, but clearly you can see just there that it actually does say that it's rated to 80 volts, but it wasn't actually coping with 80 volts, because you saw from the video, I will link it down in the comment there for anyone who wants to go and watch that episode, where it did actually say that it was supposed to be for 80 volts, and it just didn't want to work. So we have our plug back here, and we have our board there. So now we'll just plug these wires back into it. What I'm going to do is just bring the power supply over, and we're just going to plug it in and test it and see what voltage we've got coming out of the power supply. Alright, as you can see, we have 79.9 volts coming out of the power supply, which is spot on for what the power supply is supposed to put out, and for what the board's supposed to be able to take. So that's not overvolting it. Alright, so I'll just turn the power supply off and let that power drop out, and then I'll plug it in case that was part of the problem from last time. You can see that green light in the power supply there, still making power, so we'll just wait till it goes out. Alright, so the power supply's run out of power, so now we'll plug the board back in. Alright, as you can see, the board's powered up, but as you can see, it's flashing this red light. So you can see that's flashing 3 times. So according to the owner's manual on this little board, it basically says that it's an over voltage error, which is what I just read when I ordered the replacement board. So that means that's what the problem's been, but the annoying thing for me is that that's what the board said it was capable of. So it says there that it can take 80 volts, so that's what I'm putting into it. That says 79 volts, so it's interesting that it's giving me an error. Now off camera I did check that it will take down to 75 volts, and then it seems to be okay. So what I'll do is I'll drop this down to 75 volts and then we'll do a reset. Got a very fiddly little screw, and I've got too big a screwdriver. Alright, there we go. So that's basically 75 volts. So I'll just power it down and reset it, and then it should fire up. Alright, so now you can see it's got that slow blink going on, which basically means it's ready to actually run. So now we just should be able to run the power supply up. There we go. So I think you can probably hear that pumping in the background, and I can actually feel some air coming out of there. Oh dear, that sounds terrible. Stop it. Okay. This was a pump that was taken out of a dishwasher. Clearly that's maybe part of the problem. That sounds terrible, but that's okay. It is actually pumping okay. You can hear it as I try and stop the air from going in. So what I'll do next is basically put some piping on here and a bucket and some water, and basically see if I can get it to actually pump some water around. But it's interesting. So the main problem obviously with the fail board here is that I tried to plug it in with the wrong voltage going to it, but then the manufacturer's also not quite doing the right thing with their board, saying that it'll take 80 volts. But for the purpose of what I'm doing with it, it's not too bad. Whether it actually works or not, it's yet to be seen, but that's a later problem. Alright, so now I'm going to go off and find a bucket and some hoses and see if I can make a mess. Okay, so I found this LG, this is actually a drain hose off an LG washing machine, a big 10 kilo top loader. So I'm going to think about cutting it up to do this test, because then this part of the hose here will go over that part of the motor for the water outlet. That just fits over there quite nicely, and then the other end actually goes into the end of the motor and will just fit in there like so. So that one needs a little bit more of a wiggle and a jiggle and maybe a bit of tape or something to force it to stay there so that it doesn't come out. But that seems to work okay, so I might sacrifice this hose to see if I can get it to do what I want it to do, and we'll get into it. So the first thing I want to do is take this thing off. Oh, there we go. That's a lot easier than I thought. So then what I might do is see if I've got a better clamp than just this one. It's not too bad, but I really don't want it coming off with all the water and electricity around. Alright, so I found this clamp hose. It's a fair bit bigger than I need, but hopefully it'll squash down enough to do what I want it to do. It's getting really close. Oh, it's holding it now. Okay. Alright, there we go. That's on there quite nicely now. Alright, so I'm just going to grab another one, and then hopefully I might be able to put it around the other entrance to the back of this pump, which is a bit of an interesting fit, because it normally fits a part of a plastic housing that this goes into when it's in the dishwasher. And of course this is the wrong hose and the wrong pump and all the good things. You can see that's actually gone in there okay, but now it'll be a case of, can I put the clamp on it and actually get it to clamp in. Of course I don't have a lot of space, and I'm trying to put this clamp on, and it's got a lot of overhang because of the wrong size clamp that I'm using. it's clamped, but it's not holding, so I might have to think about something else. I'm just wondering if it's because of these ridges here. Alright, well, if I'm going to cut it up anyway, I guess I'll cut it. Alright, while I was looking for something to cut the hose with, I also found a smaller hose clamp, so that might help as well. Alright, here goes nothing. There we go, now I've got two hoses. Yeah, that feels a bit better in there already, actually. Alright, this one's going to end up with a smaller tail, so I'm going to try it. Alright, got that in about as far as I think it's going to go. So now I'm just trying to hold it and the clamp, and clamp it all together. Alright, that seems to be holding okay. Alright, so the plan will be that that should be the water in that I've just put on, and then the first one I managed to get on will be the water out. Alright, just going to pop the board in the box, just to protect it from any splashing that I'm most likely to do here. We'll just put it and the power supply up high, just putting it up behind where everything's sitting there. Maybe I should have put longer cables on it. Alright, we'll just fire the power supply up just to make sure the pump's still running and that everything's working before I go trying to put buckets of water in here. Alright, we've got a bucket, so I'm just going to put some water in it, and then I'll probably pre-fill the pump back in through the inlet hole, so then hopefully the water can then repressurize itself to feed the water in. So I don't think I've got time to do a proper silicone job on how I want to do this. Now I'm just going to turn this top hose around so that it points kind of in the right direction for me. Alright, I'll just try and pre-fill this, just to make sure if it's watertight. Alright, so all I've done is fill this pipe up with water, and what I'll do is I'll just move this bucket over here a little bit so you can see it, and hopefully when I turn it on it should pump the water into there. It's now only 3 hands, this will be fun. Alright, so it's definitely pumping, you can hear it. Alright, let's fill the water bottle here, so I'll just pour some water in here and see if anything changes. It is pumping, not very well, but I'm not quite got a great setup here either. Might just work on a slightly better setup and see if I can get it to work a bit better. So I've just got a bottle here, which I'm going to cut the bottom off, and then put it into the inlet side of the pump, and just see if it goes off a little bit better than it was before, and see if that works before I condemn it for what I was trying to get it to do before. So I'll just move all of the watery stuff out of the way, of all the electrical-y stuff, try and make it a little bit safer. Alright, the bucket of water. Alright, so I just got a small saw here, and I'm just going to cut the bottom off this bottle so that I can get some water in there and see if the pump's okay. Alright, that's done that. Alright, I'm just going to tape that on so that it leaks a little bit less than it possibly will otherwise. More just so it doesn't actually come out is more my worry. couple of good old bricks just to hold everything in place. Alright, so there's the bottle, and down here we have the pump. So what I'm going to do is just fill the bottle here up with water. So then that will drain into the pump inlet hose here, and then the pump should then pump it back out again and into there, and I should just be able to leave it sitting there pumping away. So then we'll see if that works. If it does, then that should just give me enough of a pump pressure to pump out of the tank to water the garden and stuff like that. So we'll pour some water in there and see what happens. Hopefully I don't leak water everywhere. And of course I can see some water coming out of the bottom there. That's okay. Just get this underway as quickly as possible there. That's an out and out no that it's trying to pump water anywhere. But it's just not going anywhere. You'll see there is no water coming out of that pump at all. So I don't know if it's just the pump's not able to pump fast enough. So we're going to have a bit of a take 3 on the pump today. I wasn't quite getting it to pump properly, and that was because I didn't just have enough water in the thing to actually get it to start pumping properly. Of course this is only a small pump, so it's not going to be pumping meters of water up hills and stuff. All I want it to do is assist the water coming out of the tank to water the garden. So after the video last time I ended up sloshing some water about, and all of a sudden it started pumping. So I made a mess all over the bench. It was great. I had water everywhere, but that's okay. So what I've got to do today is I've got this elbow piece to go on the tank. So basically this will, because this comes out into the sort of the middle of the walking area for the garden, so I'm basically just turning it around the corner so the pump can then sort of head back towards a building, so that it's basically out of the way. And then so I've just got a couple of pieces of pipe that I'm just going to add to the setup just so I can test it, and then maybe look at how I can do it properly later. But this is just what I found at Bunnings, just to get it on the road to start with, and then look at improving it as time goes on. So this will probably end up being put in a box, and I'll seal it up and put some holes in the bottom just to let any water fall out if it happens to fall apart. I will also probably just put some silicone over these wires just to insulate them so that it doesn't get shorted out if it does flood in there. And then this control board will sit in a waterproof box above it, and it will so I'll just basically silicone up the holes on that so that it stays waterproof, because basically it is outside. So I'll just make sure that that's okay. And then the big burst of power supply will sit up high out of everything, and I'll just run the power cables down to this board and keep this power supply elevated and up and out the way and in its own waterproof box so that it can't get flooded, one by the elements, but also by the pump if it happens to have a bit of an accident. So let's see what happens today. So the short version of what I'm doing is this will fit on there okay, and then I'm going to push one of those in there. So that'll be the outlet for the hose that comes to the garden, and then the tank hose will be this one, and it will somehow fit over there, and then somehow fit over there. I'll probably have to heat it up a little bit just to soften the rubbery plasticky stuff up a bit first, just to get it over the end of that. So that's what I'll do first. We'll move all the electronics out the way first so I don't burn anything. Alright, so we've got the good old MAP gas here to just heat up the pipe a little bit, tube rather, so that it goes over the end of the dishwasher pump, because it's not quite the right size, but I couldn't find anything else that would be suitable. I might be able to find an old card radiator hose or something that might be alright, but it's not pumping a lot of pressure, so it should be okay to use. There we go, that was nice and quick and easy. Now I'll just see if I can fit one of these clamps over it and just clamp it all down a bit more. The clamp's just really in an awkward spot because of where all the stuff is. Because normally this part of the dishwasher that I'm playing with here normally goes into a slot, so it doesn't actually have anything holding it apart from a bracket, I think, that sits behind it and just holds it in place. Whereas now I'm trying to get it to do something slightly different. That should be alright, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere because now the rubber's cooled down a little bit too. It'll be harder to get off. Then the next thing I need to put on is, so this piece is going on the tank, and this will be the piece that comes out the other side. So it's got the rubber seal on it, so I want that side. And there we go, that's just going to turn on, maybe, yep. So I might just check this once I've got it together, because it might leak a little bit of water out of here. Might just need to put a bit of silicone in here, or plumber's tape or something. And same for the next bit. So this will be where the hose is going to connect up to. Alright, everything seems to be fitting together quite nicely there. So then this will be the last fun bit. I don't know whether this might need a little bit of heat as well. Might help if I put the bracket on, the clamp on first. Thought I managed to get this in without having to heat it up, but for the sake of 5 seconds with the heater. Now I'll clamp that down while it's still slightly liquidy. There we go. That was quick and easy, wasn't it? So I won't do this bit on the tank until I actually go outside and put it on the tank. So I'll put this on the tank first and then I'll put this in. But that's basically how it'll fit when it goes onto the tank. And that's it. So I was going to put this on the tank today, but it's pouring with rain outside and it's going to be talking about storming, so I'm not going to do it today. Alright, well that'll close it out for this video. Thanks very much for staying to the end, and give it a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.